In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1:1. And God said, "Let there be light." And it was light. Genesis 1:3. I implore you, my child, look at the earth and sky and everything in them, and consider how God made them out of what did not exist, and that human beings come into being in the same way. 2 Maccabees 7:28. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Genesis 1:2.
This is a beautiful but deceptively simple sequence. A title summarizing God's creative work, followed by the first divine command of "Let there be light," and a clear statement coming out of the second book of Maccabees on creation out of nothing, dated 2nd century BC, as a foundational biblical tenet. But wait a minute. Between Genesis 1 verse 1 and Genesis 1 verse 3, there is of course Genesis 1 verse 2. The awkward place of verse 2 in Genesis 1 raises some pertinent questions. How did the dark, the watery deep, come into being prior to the first day of creation, when light simply emerged at God's powerful command? What is the meaning of the Hebrew phrase tohu vavohu in Genesis 1 verse 2? Could it describe a gigantic black hole, where time and space are cascading into the abyss? And what is the role of the hovering Spirit of God, so abruptly introduced by the narrator in this creation story?
When men began to increase on earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw how beautiful the daughters of men were, and took wives from among those that pleased them. The Lord said, "My spirit shall not abide in man forever, since he too is flesh. Let the days allowed him be 120 years. It was then, and later too, that the Nephilim appeared on earth, when the sons of God cohabited with the daughters of men, who bore them offspring. They were the heroes of old, the men of renown. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on earth, and his heart was saddened." Genesis 6, verses 1 through 4 and 6.
In response to the awkward union between the sons of God and the daughters of men, God inflicts on humanity not one but two punishments: a reduced lifespan and a taking away of the spirit. Who are these sons of God, or Nephilim? And what is the sin they committed to make God so angry as to regret that he created humanity, and then to bring a flood which destroyed all human beings except Noah's family?
God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And he said, "Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you." And God said further to Moses, "Thus shall you speak to the Israelites. He is the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This shall be my name forever. This is my appellation for all eternity." Exodus 3:14 and 15.
The self-disclosure of God's personal name, Yahweh, represents one of the Old Testament theological ideas, a revolutionary moment in the historical development of religious ideas. Yahweh, He is an unfinished name, an incomplete nominal clause with no predicate. The personal name Yahweh points to the fact that God is the absolute existence, the one who exists through or with reference to himself. He is the self-independent being. But who is he? Why did God not reveal his name in its entirety? And how did some Bedouins in the late Bronze Age come to speak about their God in such abstract philosophical terms, namely, God, the one who exists?
But now your dynasty will not endure. The Lord will seek out a man after his own heart, and the Lord will appoint him ruler over his people, because you did not abide by what the Lord had commanded you. 1 Samuel 13:14. And when he had removed him, he raised up David to be their king, of whom he testified and said, I have found in David the son of Jesse a man after my heart, who will do all my will. Acts 13:22.
The Bible calls David a man after God's heart. But we also know from the Bible that David was not perfect. Indeed, he committed atrocious sins, such as murder and adultery. Nevertheless, God loved and favored him. As for Saul, for a minor cultic offense, offering a sacrifice and not waiting for Prophet Samuel to do his priestly duty, he was harshly punished by God with death on the battlefield. Why such a discrepancy in God's attitude towards these two kings? And what did David do in contrast to Saul to win God's forgiveness and love?
And he said to them, O foolish men, and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. Luke 24, verses 25 and 27.
One of the earliest and most important reasons why Christians kept the Old Testament as part of their Bible are the Messianic prophecies. Those texts of the Old Testament speaking of a divine agent, the Messiah, that God will anoint or appoint to complete his work which began with creation. Are these Messianic prophecies limited to the Old Testament? Or are they to be found in other ancient writings outside the Jewish Bible? And how objective and accurate is a Christian application of the Old Testament Messianic prophecies to Jesus of the Gospels?
And he came to her and said, Rejoice, O favored one, the Lord is with you. But she was puzzled by his word, and considered in her mind what sort of greeting this might be. Luke 1, verses 28 and 29.
Luke tells us that when the Archangel Gabriel greeted the Virgin Mary with the words, Rejoice, O favored one, Mary was puzzled at his word. What was the angel's word that disturbed Mary so much? Humanly speaking, the visitation of a heavenly being is meant to bring peace and joy, and not trouble. How can we explain Mary's unexpected reaction to a mere joyous greeting? Or was she merely troubled at how God's will would be fulfilled, not whether or not it could be done?
Look at my hands and my feet. See that it is I myself. Touch me and see, for a ghost does not have flesh and bones as you see that I have. And when he had said this, he showed them his hands and his feet. While in their joy they were disbelieving and still wondering, he said to them, Have you anything here to eat? They gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he took it and ate in their presence. Luke 24, verses 39 through 43. It is sown a physical body. It is raised a spiritual body. If there is a physical body, there is also a spiritual body. 1 Corinthians 15:44.
After his resurrection, Jesus behaved in peculiar ways, to say the least. Appearing and disappearing without notice, difficult to recognize at first sight, even making breakfast on the beach. Furthermore, we see the risen Lord asking for food and then eating alongside with his disciples. How should one interpret Christ's post-resurrection appearances as natural and down-to-earth, yet disregarding the basic laws of physics? What nature did Jesus' risen body have? And how do the gospel testimonies about Jesus' corporeality fit with St. Paul's theological view on the spiritual body of the human being, which will of course be resurrected at the end of time? A two-part course which seeks to explore the Christian Bible in its width, height, depth, and breadth. The title of this course is inspired by Irenaeus' celebrated coinage Ikonomia tis Sotirias, the economy of salvation. The Christian Bible, as read by the Church Fathers, is the written record of the most important moments of this divine economy. Viewed in this way, God's creation, the space-time continuum, may be compared to a household built and owned by God Himself. Any skilled builder knows that entropy is supreme in the world of many changes. Things are always moving from an orderly manner to a chaotic state. Hence, the need for repairs, adjustments, cleanings, and improvements that each builder has to take into account the moment he begins the construction work. Sooner or later, the roof will fall apart, the walls will need some painting, the bath should be repaired, and so on. God, as the builder or creator and master of this time-impregnated universe, has a management strategy. Economia is not a rigid and unchangeable prescribed, written in advance plan, but rather a draft outline of means and ways by which the builder will respond to the concrete needs of his house at a certain point in due time and under specific circumstances. This outline gives the owner the possibility to devise and revise new solutions to new occurring problems. Economy or management, unlike a pre-written plan, is a more fluid notion which speaks the volumes of God's outstanding adaptability, so well described by the theological term synkatavasis, or condescension, by which God, as creator of the universe and master of history, enters into a dialogue with a human person, willing to adjust himself to the level of man's understanding. The God of the Bible should be viewed as the Good Samaritan, walking along with men through the valleys and peaks of their convoluted history. The first online course at Holy Cross, Searching the Scriptures, The Economy of Salvation, covers 20 significant moments in the economy of salvation or salvation history, namely God's 20 selected interventions in human history as recorded in the Old and New Testaments. In His wise economy, God the Creator offers direction, supervision, and fruition to history, and human history becomes the stage, as it were, where God's economy turns into reality. This course is designed for both clergy and laity. Students will have 24/7 access to class materials such as syllabi, digital readings, pre-recorded video lectures, handouts, and PowerPoint presentations. Ardent teacher, assiduous researcher, prolific author, and serving priest, Father Eugen Pentiuc interweaves biblical studies and Semitic philology with Orthodox theology, applying the methods and results of modern biblical scholarship, as well as the ingenuity of the ancient Jewish, Midrashic, and Christian patristic interpreters. Father Pentiuc has a special passion for uncovering the subtle and often well-hidden scriptures in the intricate and elaborate tapestry of Byzantine liturgical hymns, lectionaries, and iconography. In Father Pentiuc's pedagogical view, all the hard exegetical and theological labor has no practical value unless it is shared with the real people of God thirsty for the living and ever-refreshing Word of God. With this concrete goal in mind, Father Pentiuc designed the first online course at our beloved and sacred school of Holy Cross.
Prior to the Logos incarnation, when God became flesh, there was no other prophet in ancient Israel except for Hosea, who had the guts to say it. God loves His people with a passionate, sensual, crazy love. To convey God's unique and crazy love for an obstinate Israel, Hosea uses a quite colorful and graphic word, ahava, which derives from the onomatopoeic verb ahab, alluding to love-making, to breathe heavily, to be excited. But this word is more appropriate to paint man's love for a woman than God's love for Israel. The Hebrew lexicon has an even better religious term, chesed, expressing the unconditional, dutiful love of a father for his children. Instead, Hosea chose hava. But why the prophet's predilection for such a graphic word? We have to remember that in the 8th century before Christ, Hosea's time, Israel was still lumping, as in the days of the old and wild prophet Elijah, oscillating between Yahweh, the god of Exodus, and Baal, the Canaanite god of vegetation. Israel became almost paralyzed, like Buridan's donkey, unable to stand up or make up his mind. The people God took out of Egypt turned blind and deaf to God's tenderness. That is why Hosea uses such an edgy language, to show the immensity and magnitude of God's love and the pettiness of Israel. God is eager to sacrifice His majesty by snatching Israel, His wayward wife, aside to seduce her and show in a rather violent and desperate way His true love. God is willing to ask Hosea to take his adulterous wife back home, thus transgressing His own commandment, which plainly forbids remarriage, conform the book of Deuteronomy. All these strange and divine acts are meant to awaken Israel from his slumber and make her realize God's love. Hence Hosea's dramatic way of speaking, his graphic and absolutely unrestrained language. This crazy, I can think of no other adjective in English to describe it, love of God for all Israel was fully and dramatically shown to us when God willingly sent His only begotten Son to die for us, which did nothing to deserve such a sacrifice from both. God delivering His Son, and the Son accepting His betrayal, the passion, the cross, and the agonizing death in our place. Imagine a father asking his own son to donate his liver to someone who wasted his life away on alcohol and now needs a transplant. But God did just this. He sacrificed His own beloved Son, for He loved so much the world, as John rightly says. But from a human logical point of view, this is nothing but crazy love.